Unshelling Medicine Podcast. Healthcare in the language we understand.
Hello, welcome everybody. I have Lauren Callahan here again. Yay! And today we're talking about wellness. Yes, pretty broad, but we're going to take this conversation in areas that will benefit our listeners. So welcome again for giving us an opportunity to talk to you. Yeah, Lauren, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back again. I'm excited.
I know. Exciting stuff. Yeah. So the last time we were here, just recapping, right? So we talked about gut health. We talked about Reiki. We talked about the importance of a balanced body, right? So energetically and with food and the importance of taking care of your gut health because your gut is your second brain. So when we're talking about wellness, in a general term, I know that's a pretty broad concept. In a general term, if a person asks you, like, okay, wellness, what is that?
Yeah, I know that's such a great question because it encompasses so much. And I think that on a surface level, that's really obvious that it encompasses so much. But I think functionally, we probably treat that a little bit differently, right? Whereas, if something is wrong, we're busy people. We have lives. And so, it's easier to think of in terms of what do we do to fix maybe this one thing that feels off. That's easier and that's quicker and it makes a little more sense sometimes. Even though we know if we really take a step back and look at the broader picture, we know that of course there's something wrong over here because maybe, for example, we're binging on Cheetos every afternoon, right? And that's not helping us, right? Or of course something is wrong here, but we're leading this life that is way too stressed. Right. We're never taking time to touch grass, right?
Literally.
Yeah, exactly. We're not making our own exercise or training or self-care time like a number one priority, right? So again, theoretically, we know that wellness encompasses so many things, and it encompasses our emotional well-being, our mental focus and clarity and balance, and it encompasses, our physical health and wellness, our engagement in exercise and movement and training, however, that looks in your life. But even all the capacity, all the different facets of that, right? Like you need different kinds of exercise, right? Like sometimes you need to get your heart rate up. Sometimes you just need to keep it a little lower for a little longer. Sometimes that's flexibility, functional, like course, there's all different facets to it, right? And then there's our nutrition. Then yes, there's like our relational wellness, our financial wellness, right? Like that certainly plays a big part, all of it. Our spiritual wellness, whatever that means for you. I mean, that of course means something different for every person, but whatever it means to you, does it feel like it is nurtured and balanced and in a healthy place where you really feel connected with yourself and the world and a higher power to the extent that you want to be, right? All of those things are present in that definition of wellness. Theoretically, right? And truthfully, yeah. But so I guess what I'm getting at is we know that functionally on a day-to-day basis, it's, I'm not feeling well. We're not thinking through all the things maybe of how do we reduce stress? How do we get financially into a good place? How do we foster healthier relationships? How do we incorporate movement and training in a more prioritized way, right? So it is all of those things. So we're not divided in nature. We're very much connected and multifaceted. All of those things are important. And it's important for us to very intentionally take them all into account when we are seeking and creating our overall wellness.
I couldn't agree more. We have a way of kind of, I don't want to say compartmentalizing, but it actually is a way of compartmentalizing where, okay, well, I'll get to that when I get to that. And sometimes one affects the other, and it's this weird domino effect, right? So whenever we're talking about wellness, the one thing everybody thinks about is the medical aspect of things. The all-encompassing, you mentioned financial wellness, spiritual wellness, even relationship, right? Family dynamic, relationship with their family. That is a form of wellness that matters, right? So would you agree that it is important to at least be centered, take care of your own wellness in order to have clarity to take care of the other stuff? You mentioned, and we kind of joked about it. You don't touch grass. Yeah, people are called tree huggers, but there is actually science. The health benefit of walking barefoot feet on earth, right, or in the grass, or leaning against a tree. There's that energy exchange. Would you agree that it is important to center oneself, in order to get clarity for the other areas of life that needs wellness?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't remember if we said this when we were talking on the podcast last time, but it's like that analogy of getting onto a plane, right? When the flight attendants are going to tell you from the beginning, if cabin loses air pressure, the little, the masks, the breathing masks are going to fall
Right,
out the sky,
right,
right? Who do you put it on first, you or
right.
your child?
So,
And yeah, I've asked my clients this so many times, and probably people that have not flown and have not heard the speech have said, well, naturally you put it on your child. And I say, no, no, you put it on yourself first,
yeah,
because what is your child going to do if you pass out, right? You have to take care of yourself first
absolutely.
so that you are in a better position
Right,
to take care of other people. And this goes back to what we talked about last time, that goddess first principle, right?
mm,
You have to, put yourself first in a way that, when you're unaccustomed to this, can feel selfish. But
right.
truly, being selfish is the most selfless thing that you can do for other people, because then you are full of energy and presence and love to bring to other people when you first nurture it within yourself.
Yeah, that's very important. Take care of yourself first, and whatever guilt that may occur, in ways of selfishness, wherever that's coming from, it is not selfish. Go take care of yourself. Check in with yourself. There's something that we fear as human beings, of being alone in our heads with ourselves. That there is just,
Yeah.
I don't understand that fear, right? Be alone with those thoughts, be alone with whatever you're feeling and walk through it. It may not be pretty. That is a form of self care, just being alone, you know, getting lost in your head. And I don't know if you've tried this, or is something that I'm sure you have. It's something that you recommend to people, because there are questions that sometimes, if you don't just stop and just cut out the music, cut out everything, and just be present, you may not have the clarity on, where it's lacking. I find it works for me. I don't know if you've tried it or you've recommended it to other people.
Absolutely. So I'll definitely go down a little bit of a tangent here, a little bit of a rabbit hole, or
I
whatever
love
you want to call it.
it.
So I very much, what I'm about to describe comes straight from a way of being called internal family systems. This was
Mm,
originally developed as a therapy model, and it still is a therapy model. It's a very effective therapy model, but it is also greatly broadened and just into like many applications, right? Like schools use it, coaches use it. I would say at the heart, though, it's all those things, and just at the heart of it is a way of being with
mm,
yourself and with the world. And it's just one way of maybe framing what is the truth for all of us. So, what I'm getting at is it's this idea that we all intuitively, naturally have a self. And it's
mm.
just you, who you really are, your true and natural essence, like everything that really is you. And then we have our parts. Now our parts are us too, but in a different way. And so what I mean by that is, you, for example, we're talking about health, right? You may have a part of you that says, yes, I want to exercise an hour a day, every day, right? And then you've got another part that's just like, oh my God, I'm so stressed and tired and busy. Like I can't do it, right? I just like give up and sit on the couch, right? And you know what? That's normal to have two parts of you that feel that way, right? And then you've got another part that feels ashamed, maybe about that. And then you've got another part that feels guilty because maybe it's being selfish if you do, spend all that time, right? It's normal to have all these different parts of us. And we can honor those parts and we can love those parts and we can listen to those parts. And the key to, that, and what I'm maybe kind of adding to what you said, is that when we listen to ourselves, we can come at it from the perspective that we're actually just listening to different parts of us. And all of these parts are good. None of them are bad. They all have good reasons for being the way that they are, right? Like, you hear a story about a child who is, really driven, and maybe it's because they learned from their parents that the only way they could get approval was to make straight A's, right? We have parts of us that learned lessons long ago and learned ways of being, and they don't always agree. Like sometimes they're in conflict. And again, this is totally normal, but we from ourselves are true, our true beings. We can listen to these parts of us. We can honor them. We can cry with them. We can be angry with them. We can be grateful for them. We can disagree with them. That's okay. I mean, you can disagree with a child and still love them all day long, right? And that's okay. Sometimes it's just a very active listening and being present with yourself, like being present with these different parts of you. That is the most healing thing in the world. It's very human, I believe, to say, wow, I have a part of me that feels really, really angry. Maybe even, dear God, some hatred. Wow, like maybe that exists. It's not me. It's a part of me that feels that way. And I can love that part of me. I can honor it. I can nurture it. And that act of loving and nurturing those, quote unquote, uglier parts of us, right? The less presentable parts, is the very thing that brings healing to them and brings them into a state of, more love and openness and calmness and trust and all of those things that we maybe aspire to.
Right. And the one thing that I can actually kind of correlate with that is acknowledgement. Everybody likes to be acknowledged,
Yeah,
right? So the more you fight acknowledging that part of you that maybe you're struggling with, or you're questioning why it exists, the more it becomes a disability in a sense, right? Because the more and more you run from it, the more and more you try to ignore it, the gnawing it gets, right? Just keeps gnawing at you, right? So in pulling inward, not wanting to hang out, or drown it out with music or with work. The more intimate, in a lack of a better way to put it, you become with this part of you. You get to know this part of you. You get to know what makes it tick. You get to know the triggers, right? What triggers this part of me? If I'm determined to go work out for an hour, what is the trigger that, what, let's just sit on the couch at this point. Let's just relax. I mean, we've worked all week. We're tired. What is that trigger? What is making me, sit back in that place of comfort? Right? What is making me refuse or fight against, not wanting to do this one thing that I've put my mind to? Procrastination with anything. What is it? Fear? Am I doubting myself? What is really the reason? you know?
Yeah. I think about, I'm comparing this a lot to like, work or conversations or whatever with children. And I mean, it really can't be that way with our own selves sometimes. And that's totally fine. There's no shame in that. But I think about like with my own kids, right? They may say something or want something that I don't agree with, and it's not going to happen, right? Like no matter what you say, the answer is no. However,
Come on, Mom.
However, it doesn't mean that, I can't listen and acknowledge the importance to them, and maybe give them a hug in the process, remind them how much I love them, right? And depending on their age, maybe we discuss a little bit more around that. But, just because I don't like it or agree with whatever they're doing, it doesn't mean that I can't make them feel fully loved in the process. And that in and of itself makes all the difference, right? If my kid is asking me for something and I'm just like, no, why? Because, I'll admit, like, some days that like needs to happen, right?
Some days it's just a no. There's nothing behind it. Just no.
But, generally when I can look them in the eye and, listen and let them know, I get, like, that's really important to you. This is why I'm saying no, or this is why we're going to do it differently. Or I know that's really important to you, but it's not going to happen. I just give them a hug. Right? And not that makes everything better, but it makes it different. It makes it very different. And it does help build the relationship between me and my child. And it is the same thing for us, right? I may have a part of me all day long that's just like, I hate that human being. I never want to be around them. Or, this is so sad. I can't stop crying about this. Or, I feel really shame. I feel a lot of shame around this or something like that. I may know that this is not the best thing in the world for me to feel or to relate to other people in this way, but it doesn't mean that I can't allow that feeling or that part of me to exist and acknowledge it with love. And really, like, genuinely take a moment to, like, get it, right? Like, actually, I can get why this part of me feels so angry, right? But even that, can create a little bit of separation between you and that feeling, which can be very empowering. And also, in a sense, build some trust and love within yourself, right? So that you're not always in the state of feeling like you're battling yourself and your emotions or your goals or whatever, right? But there really is a sense of like deep connection within yourself.
Mm-hmm. I really do agree. It's going back to the analogy of children because you and I are moms. So it's great for children. Not all children have this, and that's the sad part. It's great for children to have a support system, right? Not all of us grew up with having a support system in a parent, right? So as adults, some of us do struggle with trust, right? Or even having a village, people you can actually confide in or just vent to. And a lot of these struggles that sometimes we have with ourselves, we don't trust ourselves enough sometimes to explore these different aspects of us, however ugly and disturbing looking it is. What would you recommend for a person who may be struggling with either accepting themselves in however they present, right? Or having an avenue to vent or explore this to while on the road to a healing journey. Okay, we're talking about wellness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Accepting and acknowledging and recognizing yourselves and putting things in place in order to move forward is very important. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody knows how to do that or trust themselves to do that. So, what would you recommend?
A few different things. One thing that comes to mind for me is, last time when we talked about a Reiki practice, and this is something that I do and that I bring to other people. And, one of the foundational beliefs in Reiki is that you are perfect the way that you are. You are powerful and perfect. And it's a matter sometimes of just, releasing the beliefs or the energies or, the things about you that are just not for your highest good. So sometimes like just simply having this Reiki practice, and it's so simple. I keep saying simple because it truly is something that you just choose to receive, right? To set the intention to receive it. And it's okay if you have mistrust along the way. That's a part of you that we can bring along in a Reiki practice, the parts that aren't ready to trust. That's okay. I brought my own parts that were not ready to trust when I first started Reiki. And this is simply a process, as you receive Reiki, of releasing the energies that are not for your highest good. And that includes, the parts of you that completely doubt, right? That self-doubt, self-tear down, all the things, right? So that is a beautiful way of starting your journey. Another way that I would say is just starting with that intention of compassion toward all parts of you, right? And so this takes a lot of intentionality, right? Like it takes, noticing those moments when you're battling yourself. I mean, you're in a fight with something within you, right? Like that's the time to notice, I'm in a power struggle with myself. Can I get out of that? And can I reapproach with compassion? I may not agree. I may have opposing sides here, but that's okay. Like I'm powerful and perfect the way that I am. And I can have compassion for the parts of me that are not in agreement. And just simply setting that intention to send compassion to the parts of you that maybe feel in conflict. And then setting the intention to just be present with them and listen, like that can go such a long way in healing the places within you that don't feel nurtured, that feel in conflict, right? So sending, like very intentionally sending that compassion. And then, you mentioned the village, right? Like we certainly need to include an element here of reaching out to other people and being vulnerable. When I wrote my first book, I don't remember if we mentioned that one. We talked about my second book last time, Powerful, Not Tired. But my first book, House to 50 Miles, that was such a vulnerable book. I was so open and raw in the book. And that was an incredibly emotional experience for me to put something so raw and vulnerable out there in the world, especially when traditionally, historically, I am the person that would rather hide and be small. Like this is a part of like my own, trauma backgrounds that I learned to be small, right? That's a safer way of being, is to be small and to hide from other people. And then here I am, I wrote a book. There's no better way to not be small than like to write a book and put it out there in the world. Yeah. So, I wrote about my journey of healing through that mindset of needing to be small. And then I wrote a book and put it out there in the world and wanted to be small again. Right. And then, just through the very act of doing it, right, like had to be not small. Right. And in that process, I learned how beautiful that is, right? To connect with other people and to not hide and be small and just to be who you are, right? And when you are who you are, all the good, bad, and ugly, raw, and everything else, just are able to connect with other people in a more authentic and genuine way.
Yeah. And I love touching on the subject of being small. Your experience is from a trauma perspective, but also culturally from a culture that believes you don't talk about your traumas. You don't talk about what ails you or what bothers you. Certain things are worth talking away. You don't want to air out your dirty laundry, things of that sort. And there are a lot of people who suffer in silence, right? Or even when they vent, or even when they communicate to their village, there's usually a hush hush way of dealing with things,
Yeah.
which is very unhealthy. Okay, I'll be the first person to say it is extremely unhealthy. But there's always a fear of being ostracized or being criticized. So, what would the recommendation be? Of course, you can't change a culture, right? You can't change belief systems. Sometimes, even within certain religious groups, certain things are meant to not leave a certain, boundary, right? So, how do we work through this very concrete construct, cultural or religious construct?
I would say that first of all, it would start as our theme is, where we're start with yourself and then move on to others. I would say that a good first place to start is for you to really recognize and acknowledge the danger of secrecy, and how important it is to connect with others. For example, a word about the danger of secrecy. So I spent a year as a therapist at Children's Advocacy Network. I work strictly 100%, 99%, okay, I had one exception, with children who were sexually abused. Okay. 1 year. And what I can tell you, I mean, if there's anything that, I learned out of that is, and I think, most people know this, but let's put this out there, is that kind of trauma thrives in secrecy. One of the primary things that you can do to heal from that experience is for it to not be a secret anymore. However, that comes with a huge amount of risk, and the risks are very real. There are so many reasons why children keep
Yes.
sexual trauma as a secret, right? Now, this is one, and it often has to do with exactly like you said, like you get ostracized, right? Some people won't believe you. Nobody wants to believe that, like, kind of terrible, occurrence, right? Like, no, especially like it normally happens by people that right? Like, people don't want to acknowledge that people that they know did it. There's so many reasons, good reasons for a child to keep it secret. And yet the most powerful healing thing that they can do is not keep it a secret.
Right.
Now, the next thing to acknowledge is that there are risks. So that was an example with sexual trauma. We're moving beyond sexual trauma. Like, this is in general, a lot of negative things in our life have power when there's secrecy around it.
Right.
So to acknowledge that, first of all, breaking that secrecy is one of the most healing things that we can do. Now, the second thing to acknowledge is that, yes, there are risks around that. And like you said, depending on our culture, our society, I want to say religious beliefs, but more like the religious culture, that we're in, there are risks, there are likely people that will ostracize you, criticize. Like, it is likely going to happen. There are those really nice scenarios where people surprise you and they're like, I'm so glad you said something, right? And there are usually people that will say that, but I think the reality is that it's often going to be a mix, right? And so I think just to acknowledge that there are risks of loss in your life, when I became vocal about some of the trauma that I experienced in my childhood, I did lose people that were important to me. However, I also maybe had stronger relationships with the people that are really important to me, right? It's kind of like, like I'm a coach, right? Like, one of the first things they'll tell you in the marketing world is just to be yourself, have your message, and you are going to lose people. If you don't lose people, you're not being clear enough about your message, right? Like, it's a good thing to push people away because it means you're drawing in the people that you want to be a part of your business. And I would say in life, it's the same thing. Like, be you, don't keep things a secret, be yourself, put it out there. You will push people away. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because you will actually draw in the people that you want to be in your life.
Yeah, that was a lot. It's so incredible how, that healing, that personal healing, and or at least going on that journey can really open your eyes onto to like spending habits, right? Or emotional reaction to things,
Yes.
or feeling small, right? Not wanting to be heard. It's so incredible how everything is connected. So, for anybody who is willing to go on this healing journey or any journey of, identifying what makes them tick, right? And maybe they don't have the best village, right? What would be your recommendation on seeking out, an avenue?
Yeah. So I'll say this, and I do have to let you know I have to jet in just a minute here for
Right.
another. But I'd say it's going to look different for a lot of people. Some people I would absolutely recommend, like, go to therapy. It does not mean something is wrong with you. It means that you are on a healing journey. I think therapy is great for every single person, actually. So yeah, and intentionally seek out, communities of people and just individuals that, really pull out the best in you, right? And that you feel loved and nurtured. And I mean, they're not responsible for that. You love and nurture yourself first. But when you do that, you will attract people that secondarily also do that. So love and nurture yourself first, and you will attract people that, send you that positive, same sort of loving vibe back, right? Absolutely.
I agree. Go where you're loved, go where you're welcomed, and go where you're needed and wanted.
Yes.
So, Lauren, is always a great conversation. This was so good.
Thank
So,
you. I love
wellness is all
it.
encompassing. It has everything to do with everything.
Yeah.
Start here first, okay? Start here is not always medical, is not always spiritual, is not always just the one thing. How are these things connected? And you're the best judge of yourself, what your needs are. Look inward, the answers are all there. So please, everybody, thank you for listening. Take very good care of yourself and please engage. Let us know your stories. We're looking forward to having more conversation, but we need to hear from our community. If this was beneficial, let us know. Again, the show notes will have Lauren's information. So if you need to reach out for anything, she'll be happy to hear from you. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Lauren, for being here again.
Thank you. I loved this.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Unshelling Medicine Podcast. If you want to stay up to date with the latest episodes, make sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review. Follow us on social media at Altruistic Scribe on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We share additional tips, updates, and health-related content that you won't want to miss. Have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes? Reach out to us at altruisticscribeco.com. We're always eager to hear from our listeners and tackle the health topics that matter most to you. Until next time, stay healthy and take care.